from the beginning of time, people have certain questions. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Why do Dragon Ball Z characters scream at each other for one whole episode before they actually fight? And is Steam a monopoly? And rightfully so. I honestly believe Steam is a huge monopoly. That is a good thing. When Steam first started out, it started out just being a launcher for Valve's games, games like Counter-Strike, Half-Life. And eventually over time, it became so good that people from other publishers, other developers also wanted in and basically wanted to put their games on the platform. For a really long time, Steam has been the gold standard. There are obviously other offerings. You have Epic Games, GOG, stuff like that for offering games for primarily PC gamers. And if you're on the console end, it's basically PlayStation Store, Xbox Store, and Nintendo Store. Like they have their own proprietary platforms for serving you games. But when it comes to Windows gaming, or when it comes to desktop gaming in general, Steam basically is at the forefront of basically leading the wave of this generation of gamers. Recently, when Battlefield 6 came out, a lot of gamers had this problem with EA's proprietary platform. So, like the head at EA literally told in a tweet to all of the gamers to shift over to Steam and basically play on Steam. Like that's how good it is. And even a few years ago, Ubisoft, which had their own proprietary platform, I think it's called Uplay or something, they basically had to still migrate all the games from their proprietary platform to Steam. If you're a Windows gamer, more often than not, it's either Steam or Epic Games. And that's it. Very rarely hear people buying games on GOG, but that still is an option. But one very good thing about GOG is when you buy a game on GOG, you don't own the license of the game, you own the game itself, which was a huge problem a few months back with the huge Stop Killing Games movement, where it all stemmed from Ubisoft basically having this game called Motorsport or something, which was like a car racing game. And basically they released the sequel to it and they cut off access for the first game. So the first game needed server access, needed you to connect to the internet, even for playing like single player content, because they basically cut off the servers to the first game. The game was inaccessible and you couldn't play that game, and there was the whole fiasco of Stop Killing Games movement. I feel like where we are right now in 2025, Steam is the leading offering for any game, and there are tiny things that Steam does that makes Steam so good for the consumers. I was talking to one of my friends who was in this UI space, and I was telling of how really popular websites like Amazon and Steam have not industry standard UI as of 2025. And he told me something interesting. He was like, Steam and Amazon have such great volume of number of people that come in and number of people that interact with their product, and they basically want to generalize and standardize that volume towards anyone. So even if my grandma wanted to order something off Amazon or buy a game on Steam, the goal of Steam and Amazon is to make them really, really accessible and not really hard to reach, which I feel like sometimes modern UI standards does, but that's a whole conversation for another thing. Another really important thing that Steam does is if there is a sale for a bundle, right? If there is a bundle on sale, and assume something like you have your modern Resident Evil remake game, something like Resident Evil 2, Nemesis, Resident Evil 2, 3, and Resident Evil 4. Imagine all these three games are in a bundle sale. And imagine you already have Resident Evil 3 in your library. You already had purchased that game previously. So when you have these three bundle sales, when the sale applies, it just subtracts automatically the game that you had in your library and applies the bundle sale to the other two games and gives you the end product. I know it's like a really tiny thing, but it just speaks miles of how much Steam cares about customer accuracy when it comes to delivering of the product. So recently there was this article talking about how Steam is a monopoly and 72% of gamers and publishers, a lot of people basically prefer Steam over every other platform. And in general sense, having a monopoly is a bad thing, right? Like if you have a monopoly over a certain market, you have no incentive to innovate exactly what happened to Call of Duty. Like for a really long time in like the Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, who was basically the monopoly when it comes to like traditional multiplayer, like first person shooter experience. Call of Duty was at the forefront, and then Battlefield 6 came in, and all of a sudden, Call of Duty basically did changes to their matchmaking system. A lot of innovative systems that they previously refused to even acknowledge. They basically went ahead and made those changes. And I often think about how monopolies do operate, but like Steam is not a monopoly because they are subduing other competition. They are buying up smaller companies, stuff like that. They are a monopoly because they are simply a better product. They do nothing and they keep winning, and the opposition, every other competitor, basically takes their time and shoots themselves in the foot. And that's what Steam does, and they've been doing that consistently for a really long time. I think there's like 30 or 40 employees in Steam. They have a really small team for Steam, and yet they're able to generate this huge amount of revenue, this huge pull, because their product offering is really superior. And also like having a first come, and because Steam was one of the first offerings, it's been like 20-30 years since Steam, it's been 20 years since Steam has come out, I guess somewhere around that number. So Steam has the advantage of longevity, and people have come up to trust Steam. And one of the most important things that Steam does is if you purchase a game, and I think it's 2 hours, and if you spend in-time game in Steam of less than a few hours, which is like 2 hours or something, I don't exactly know. If you spend that much time and you didn't like the game, or in my case, I had I bought Dishonored on Epic and I bought it on Steam. I forgot that I bought it on Epic, and I wanted to refund it, and instantly they refund it, and they obviously offer you Steam credits, which you can cash in for other games, which is not a problem at all. But it's tiny things like these that Steam does, which greatly amplify the customer support experience, greatly amplify how good the customer service is. And you've seen a bunch of memes that floats around the internet of how good the Steam's uh, customer service is. So Steam, I primarily believe Steam is a monopoly, and I don't think it's a problem. I think what's a problem is other game developers trying to do it all, trying to have the platform, have the game, control the end service, have the platform, have the game, control the end point appreciation, control how the consumer feels. Like when a company tries to do all of this, I think that's when they get into trouble. Like for Steam, yeah, Valve does have Counter Strike, but it's something of a side project to them. Counter Strike is not even their main project. Occasionally, they just drop a bomb and like tank third party markets, but that's all in a good Monday's work. But yeah, that's been about it. I think Steam is a monopoly, and I'm happy as long as they don't curtail development and they don't offer a superior product than everyone else. Bye.